during what was supposed to be my dream trip across Europe, the man I loved did something that not only destroyed our relationship, but revealed a secret that could open anyone's eyes about trust. Stay with me, because what happened might save you from living the same nightmare. Before I reveal his shocking secret plan, subscribe, like, and share this video. What I discovered while crying at that train station will change how you see trust forever. Stay until the end for a twist you won't believe. So picture this. I'm living my best life, young and carefree, when I met this guy during carnival season. You know how those magical moments happen. The music, the energy, the romance in the air. We clicked instantly, and what started as a fun carnival fling quickly evolved into something much more serious. By April, we were officially dating, and honestly, I thought I had found my person. The relationship was moving fast, maybe too fast in hindsight, but everything felt so right. We were making plans for concerts, weekend getaways, talking about our future together. The honeymoon phase was in full swing, and I was completely smitten. Then, just a few months into our relationship, he proposed something that made my heart race with excitement. "How about we do a backpacking trip through Europe this July?" he said casually one evening, as if he was suggesting we grab dinner somewhere new. Europe. Can you imagine? I had never been outside my home country, never experienced anything like that. The thought of wandering through ancient European cities, riding trains across different countries, experiencing all those cultures I had only seen in movies, it was like a dream come true. And doing it with someone I was falling for, it seemed perfect. But here's where things get complicated. And trust me, this is just the beginning of a story that will blow your mind. We started planning immediately. 20 days of pure adventure across multiple countries. France, Spain, Italy, Switzerland. We mapped out this incredible route, bought one-way tickets, and planned to work out our return journey as we went. The spontaneity of it all felt so romantic, so adventurous. I was absolutely thrilled. There was just one tiny problem. I was completely broke. I mean, completely. But when you're young and in love and someone offers you the trip of a lifetime, you find a way, right? So I did what many young people do when faced with an opportunity like this. I took out a loan. It wasn't a small amount either, but I figured this was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I'd worry about paying it back later. It's important to note that we each paid our own way. He didn't offer to cover my expenses, and honestly, I respected that. We were both students, both struggling financially, and it felt fair that we each handle our own costs. I scraped together every penny I could, took that loan, and prepared for what I thought would be the most amazing experience of my life. Everything was going smoothly until about a week before we were supposed to leave. That's when he started showing a side of himself I had never seen before. He presented me with a schedule. Not just a rough itinerary. I'm talking about a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour breakdown of our entire trip. And I mean everything. What time we'd wake up, what time we'd have breakfast, exactly how long we could spend at each location, when we were allowed to take bathroom breaks, what time we'd go to bed. It was like a military operation. Now, I understood that Europe required some planning, especially since we'd be taking a lot of trains, and those run on strict schedules. But this was something else entirely. This felt controlling in a way that made me uncomfortable, but I tried to rationalize it. He had traveled internationally before. I hadn't. Maybe this level of planning was necessary. Maybe I was being naive about what European travel required, but something in my gut told me this wasn't normal. The way he presented it, the way he seemed almost excited about having complete control over every moment of our trip, it felt wrong. Still, I had already taken out that loan, already committed to this adventure, and I convinced myself I was overthinking things. The day finally arrived, and despite my growing concerns, I was still excited. We were actually doing this. We were going to Europe together. As we boarded that plane, I pushed down my worries and focused on the adventure ahead. But the moment we landed, everything started going wrong. Our first accommodation had overbooked, and we couldn't get into the hostel he had reserved. Instead of rolling with it and finding another place, he completely lost it. I watched this man I thought I knew transform into someone I didn't recognize. He was furious, not just disappointed. genuinely angry that his precious schedule was already falling apart. I tried to stay positive. "It's okay," I told him. "This is part of the adventure, right? We'll find somewhere else." But he was having none of it. He spent the next hour complaining about how this was ruining everything, how I didn't understand how carefully he had planned everything. That was just day one. As we continued our trip, the pattern became clear. Everything had to go exactly according to his schedule, and I mean everything. If I wanted to stop for ice cream at a place that wasn't on his list, he'd get upset. If I saw a cute shop and wanted to browse for souvenirs, he'd check his watch and remind me that we had exactly 15 minutes for shopping, not a minute more. The worst part was the language barrier. I only spoke English, and while I was trying my best to navigate, I often needed his help with translations or directions. He used this as another way to control the situation, getting frustrated whenever I couldn't understand something immediately. But here's the thing. I wasn't going to let his controlling behavior ruin my dream trip. I had taken out a loan for this experience, and I was going to enjoy it. So I developed my own strategy. I started ignoring his complaints. If I wanted that ice cream, I bought it while he stood there fuming. If I wanted to take a photo somewhere that wasn't on his precious itinerary, I took it anyway. This created an incredibly tense dynamic. He was getting more and more frustrated with me, and I was getting more and more fed up with his need to control every moment. We were traveling through some of the most beautiful places in the world, and instead of enjoying it together, we were locked in this constant power struggle. Days passed like this, me trying to experience the magic of Europe while he obsessed over his schedule. The relationship was clearly falling apart, but we were stuck together in foreign countries with weeks still left on our trip. Then came the day that changed everything. We were staying in a hostel in what I'll call City X, and we had to catch a train the next morning to continue our journey. The night before, he casually mentioned that he had a friend in this city, someone I had never heard of before. "I'm going to visit him tomorrow morning before we leave," he told me. "You wait for me at the train platform. Platform number 7, you can't miss it. I'll meet you there right before the train arrives." I immediately felt panicked. We were in a foreign country. I didn't speak the language fluently, and he wanted to leave me alone to navigate to a train station by myself. When I expressed my concerns, he brushed them off. "It's easy," he said. "You can't possibly get lost." But there was something about the way he said it, something about his whole demeanor that felt off. Why hadn't he mentioned this friend before? Why wasn't I invited to meet him? And why did he seem so casual about leaving me alone when he knew how dependent I had become on his help with the language barrier? Fortunately, there was a Portuguese woman staying at our hostel who spoke English. When she saw how worried I was, she kindly offered to help me figure out the route to the train station. She even wrote down directions for me and marked important landmarks on a map. The next morning, he left early to see his mysterious friend, and I made my way to the train station following the Portuguese woman's instructions. I found platform 7 and settled in to wait for him. And I waited, and waited, and waited. As the departure time approached, and he still hadn't shown up, I started calling and texting him. No response. The train was about to leave, and I was completely alone on a platform in a foreign country with no idea what to do. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. He wasn't coming. But how could I be sure? Maybe he was just running late. Maybe something had happened to his friend. I kept telling myself there had to be a reasonable explanation, even as passengers boarded the train, and it eventually pulled away from the station, without either of us on it. I spent the entire day on that platform, texting and calling him with no response. As the hours passed, the horrible truth became undeniable. He had abandoned me, in a foreign country, 11 days into what was supposed to be a 20-day romantic trip. But the worst part wasn't just that he had left me there. It was how I found out what he was really doing. When I finally managed to contact friends back home to tell them what was happening, they immediately started checking his social media accounts. And there it was, photo after photo of him exploring the city, visiting tourist attractions, living his best life. The timestamps showed that he had been posting these photos while I was sitting on that train platform, desperately trying to reach him. He hadn't just left me. He had planned this. While I was waiting for him like a fool, he was already moving on with his trip, completely solo, without any intention of meeting me at that train. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a mistake. This was deliberate abandonment. He had planned to ditch me from the moment he mentioned visiting his friend. Maybe he had planned it even longer than that. I sat on that platform and cried like I had never cried before. I was alone in a foreign country. I barely spoke the language, and the person I had trusted completely had just vanished from my life without explanation. But here's what I learned about human kindness in that moment of despair. Strangers started approaching me. People could see I was in distress, and even though we didn't share a language, they tried to help. Through gestures and broken English, they offered assistance, water, even money. Meanwhile, my friends back home were working frantically to help me figure out what to do. Through social media and various connections, they managed to find someone who knew someone in the city where I was stranded. Within a few hours, I had a place to stay with these complete strangers who opened their home to someone in need. The rest of my trip was a blur of trying to figure out how to get home safely, since we had bought separate tickets for everything. Thank goodness for that financial independence. I wasn't completely stranded. I had my own money and my own return ticket. But here's the kicker. When I got to the airport for my original return flight, he wasn't there. We were supposed to be on the same flight, but he had clearly changed his ticket without telling me. Even at the very end, he was making sure our paths wouldn't cross. I flew home alone, processing what had just happened to me. A man I had trusted enough to travel across the world with, someone I had taken out alone to experience Europe with, had abandoned me like I meant absolutely nothing to him. The whole experience taught me so much about red flags in relationships that I had completely ignored. The controlling behavior, the rigid scheduling, the way he had used my language barrier to maintain power over me. These were all warning signs that I had rationalized away because I was caught up in the romance of it all. Looking back, I realized the trip probably revealed who he really was under pressure. When things didn't go according to his perfect plan, when I asserted even the smallest bit of independence, he couldn't handle it. Rather than communicate or compromise, he chose the most cowardly way out possible. But you know what? In some weird way, I'm grateful it happened. Yes, it was traumatic and terrifying, and I had to pay off that loan for months afterward, but it taught me invaluable lessons about trusting my instincts, about recognizing controlling behavior, and about my own resilience. I learned that I could handle being alone in a foreign country. I learned that strangers can be incredibly kind. I learned that I should never ignore red flags just because someone is offering me something I want. Most importantly, I learned that the right person would never, ever abandon you like that. The right person would want to experience those magical European moments with you, would be excited when you want to stop for ice cream or buy a souvenir, would see your spontaneity as part of the adventure, rather than a problem to be controlled. That trip was supposed to be about falling in love with Europe and with each other. Instead, it became about falling in love with my own strength and learning to trust myself above all else. I never spoke to him again after that trip. I have no idea what his explanation would have been. And honestly, I don't care. There's no explanation that could justify abandoning someone like that, especially someone you claim to care about. The whole experience happened so fast. We met in February, were dating seriously by April, and took this trip in July. Looking back, that timeline seems insane to me now. How can you really know someone well enough to travel internationally with them after just a few months? How did I miss all those red flags? But that's the thing about being young and in love. You want to believe in the fairy tale. You want to believe that when someone offers you the world, they actually mean it. This is a true story shared by one of my followers from another platform, and I'm so grateful they trusted me with their experience. Stories like this remind us all to trust our instincts and never ignore red flags, no matter how exciting the opportunity might seem. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to my channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Drop a comment below if you've ever experienced something similar, or if you have your own travel horror story to share. Your engagement helps me bring you more real stories like this one. Remember, the right person will never make you feel like you need to shrink yourself to fit into their perfectly planned world. The right adventure partner will celebrate your spontaneity, not punish it. Thank you for listening to this incredible story, and I'll see you in the next video.